Geoffrey Millard.
My name is Geoff Millard. I served for 9 years in the New York Army National Guard, 13 months of that in Operation Iraqi Freedom. The last 9 months of my 9-year military career was spent unexcused absence, the Guard's version of AWOL. I was mailed my honorable discharge in May of 2007. I'd like to summarize my written testimony. All of the testifiers have submitted full written testimony to the chair so that it can be entered into the record. And I will summarize my testimony. I'd like to start by saying...
I'm going to interrupt you just for a second, because when you said that about your testimony, I want to make sure that all of you know that your entire testimony will be entered into the record. Thank you.
I would like to thank the Progressive Caucus, especially, though, the chair, Representative Woolsey, and her entire staff, especially, though, Bill Gould and Chris Shields. Also, I'd like to thank the co-chair, Representative Lee, and Representative Waters, for listening to more than just politicians, pundits, and generals. Thank you for listening to soldiers. At some point in the summer of 2005, I have to say I can't remember when. You see, in Iraq, a year becomes a month becomes a day, and that day seems to repeat over and over and over again through your entire tour. So it's true for me. I worked for a general. My detractors have often referred to me as a general secretary, and while as a former infantryman and former engineer, that angered me at the beginning. I have to say I was a general secretary. One day, there was a briefing that was briefed for the general that there was a traffic control point shooting. In it, a young private saw a vehicle speeding at his traffic control point and made a split-second decision and put more than 200 rounds into this vehicle as it sped towards them, putting it to a stop and killing all of its inhabitants. He then watched as the mother, father, and 2 children were dragged from that car. That evening, as it was briefed to the general, and I flipped the slides for that briefing, Colonel Rochelle from the 42nd Infantry Division, DISCOM commander, and I have to apologize for a little vulgarity here, but I feel it's intricate for my testimony. He turned in his chair to an entire division-level staff and said, and I quote, "If these fucking Hajis learned to drive, this shit wouldn't happen." I was set back by that. I expected more out of high-ranking officers coming from a line unit. I expected a lot more. And as I looked around at the other officers and high-ranking NCOs in the room, non-commissioned officers, I found no dissenting facial expressions or body language, just nodding of the head, as if to say, yep, if these effing Hajis learned to drive, this wouldn't happen. I don't think that that's really true, but yet it seemed in Iraq everything became Haji. Everything that wasn't us became Haji. If it was the Pakistanis that did our laundry, they became Hajis. If it were the KBR employees that made our food at the chow hall, they became Hajis. And in the Muslim world, to a Muslim, the term Haji is a term of great respect. But when we use it as a term of dehumanization. It's not a term of respect. It's not meant for someone who's finished that pillar of Islam, one of the 5 pillars of Islam, to go on the Hajj. Instead, it's meant as a term of disrespect, of dehumanization, much the same as the term gook during the Vietnam conflict. I would have conversations with other members of my unit and ask them why they did this, why people would say, I'm going to the Haji shop to get a Haji DVD from these Hajis. And I'd ask about that, why use that? Especially one of my roommate who happened to be from Puerto Rico, I'd ask him why, and he would say, who cares, they're just Hajis. This was a common response from members of my unit that I just couldn't understand. After so long, I stopped bringing it up. I buried my head in the sand, and I finished my last few months of my tour. I came home and joined Iraq Veterans Against the War, who I am very proud to be here with today. I thank the caucus, and I thank Iraq Veterans Against the War for allowing us to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.